I had never thought falling in love would start in a place where my muscles ached and sweat clung to my skin. But then again, life had a twisted sense of humor, putting me in the same room as him for 2 hours every day and calling it training. Coach Ryan had a reputation. Sharp, demanding, and annoyingly precise with everything from a push-up to a diet plan. Most people admired him from afar. Some feared him. However, hated the way he seemed to see right through me, the way his eyes could strip me bare in a single glance, exposing weaknesses I didn't even know I had. The first time I noticed the difference was subtle, almost imperceptible. I had dropped a dumbbell clumsy. Yes, but a normal accident. Yet, instead of his usual sharp, "Be more careful," his voice softened. Just a fraction. Just enough that it felt personal. Almost protective. "Are you hurt?" he asked, stepping closer, his hand hovering near mine as if unsure whether to touch or retreat. My heart did something stupid in my chest, and I mumbled, "No, I'm fine," even though I was anything but. Over the weeks, those little shifts became impossible to ignore. The way he lingered when correcting my form, the brief, accidental touches that made my skin feel like it was on fire, the moments when our eyes met and neither of us looked away. It was dangerous, thrilling, confusing. I tried to ignore it, focused on my training, my progress, my goals, but Ryan had a way of making everything else disappear. He didn't just see my body. He saw me. Every doubt, every hesitation, every desire I'd buried deep down. One evening, the gym was empty except for us. The fluorescent lights cast long shadows across the equipment. He had been showing me a new stretch, hands guiding mine, correcting the angle of my shoulders. I felt his breath brush against my neck, felt the heat of his body close to mine. "Relax," he murmured, and there was a softness in his tone that hadn't been there before. "You're doing better than you think." I laughed nervously, trying to hide the way my pulse spiked. "Thanks, coach." He smiled, not the professional, distant smile he always wore around others, but a small, private smile, like he was sharing a secret. And maybe he was. That night, as I walked home, I couldn't stop replaying the touch of his hands, the warmth in his voice. I knew I was crossing an invisible line, but part of me didn't care. Part of me wanted him to cross it too. The days that followed were a mixture of tension and stolen moments. He would brush past me, fingers grazing my arm just enough to make me shiver. His eyes would linger when he thought I wasn't looking. And sometimes, just sometimes, I caught him staring with a kind of longing that mirrored my own. It was dangerous. Absolutely, undeniably dangerous. Relationships with coaches were off-limits. Professional lines existed for a reason. But every time I saw him, every time he smiled that half-smile that was meant for no one else, it felt impossible to resist. Then came the night that changed everything. The gym was empty again. Rain pounded against the windows, a soundtrack to the storm brewing inside me. We were alone, just the two of us, and the air between us was electric. He stepped closer than usual, his hand brushing mine as he handed me a towel. "Ryan," I started, my voice catching. "I can't." He placed a finger gently on my lips, silencing me. "Shoo, I know," he whispered, eyes dark and intense. "I've been trying to fight it too, but I can't anymore." And then he kissed me. It wasn't like the movies. It wasn't dramatic or loud. It was soft, tentative at first, testing boundaries, learning the shape of my lips. But it carried all the weight of weeks of longing, of tension, of unspoken feelings. My hands found his shoulders. His hands rested on my waist. And suddenly the world shrank to the two of us. The rain, and the quiet hum of the gym lights. That was the beginning. the start of something that defied rules, expectations, and maybe even logic. But it was real. And for the first time, I didn't want to fight it. After that night, everything changed but nothing changed. Ryan and I fell into a rhythm that was as exhilarating as it was terrifying. During the day, he was the strict, demanding coach who scrutinized every movement I made, every protein shake I consumed, every drop of sweat I shed. But at night, when the gym emptied and the world seemed to pause, he was soft, intimate, and undeniably his. I found myself craving those stolen moments. Sometimes it was just a brush of hands when adjusting my posture. Other times it was lingering glances across the room that left my chest tight and my mind spinning. The tension built with every session, every shared laugh, every accidental touch. We began to push boundaries. A hand lingering too long on a shoulder. A brush of fingers along the back when correcting a form. A teasing smile that carried a secret. Each gesture was a spark. A tiny explosion that left me dizzy with anticipation. One evening, after a particularly grueling workout, Ryan suggested we stay behind to work on my flexibility. The gym was empty, silent except for the rhythmic thump of music from his phone. I was exhausted, muscles trembling from exertion. But there was something about being alone with him that made my body tense in ways unrelated to exercise. "Let's start with your shoulders," he said, guiding my arms behind my back. His hands were warm, firm, lingering just long enough to make me shiver. "Relax. You're doing fine." I laughed, trying to mask the heat rising in my chest. "If this is part of the training, I think I'm failing." He smirked, a slow, knowing smile that made my knees go weak. "I think you're doing better than you realize. But maybe you need a little incentive." Before I could respond, his hand brushed mine, fingers intertwining naturally. My heart leapt into my throat. He noticed, of course, because his smirk softened into something unreadable, something intimate. "I shouldn't," I started, but he pressed a finger to my lips. "Shoo," he murmured. "We're alone. No one needs to know." And that's when the line truly blurred. We began to experiment with closeness beyond casual touches. Hands lingering, bodies brushing, quiet murmurs in the empty gym. Each moment was charged with desire, but also a strange tenderness. A sense that we were exploring something fragile and important. I realized I was falling for him. Completely, hopelessly, despite the danger. He was my coach, my mentor, the person I had trusted to push me to my limits, and yet, here he was, showing me a side of him no one else ever saw. Vulnerable, tender, longing. One rainy night, after a session that left me soaked in sweat and adrenaline, Ryan leaned against the wall, watching me stretch. The rain streaked the windows, casting a silver light over the gym. I looked up at him, chest heaving, and caught him staring. Not the focused, analytical gaze of a coach, but something deeper, something intimate. "Why are you looking at me like that?" I asked, trying to sound casual, though my voice trembled. He stepped closer, closing the distance between us. "Because I can't stop," he confessed, voice low, raw. "Because every time I see you, I want to." His words caught in his throat as he reached out, cupping my cheek. My breath hitched. The world seemed to shrink to that small gesture, that touch, the warmth of his hand against my skin. "You don't know how long I've wanted this," he admitted, eyes dark with emotion. "I've fought it, believed I could stay professional. But I can't. Not anymore." Before I could respond, he kissed me. It was urgent yet gentle, a paradox that mirrored everything I felt for him. I pressed closer, hands on his shoulders, feeling the taut muscles under my fingers, the steady warmth of his body. The kiss deepened, slow and deliberate, exploring, learning, a silent promise of what was to come. From that night on, our relationship became a careful dance between public professionalism and private passion. During the day, Ryan remained the exacting, no-nonsense coach. But the moment the gym emptied, we transformed. Our touches were bolder, our glances heavier, our conversations filled with subtle confessions and teasing innuendos. We found ways to communicate without words. A brush of a hand, a lingering gaze, a shared smile. These small gestures became our secret language. And every night, every moment alone, felt like a new discovery, a reaffirmation of something deeper than desire. Despite the thrill, I couldn't ignore the tension that came with it. We were playing with fire. One misstep could ruin everything. But for some reason, the danger only heightened the intensity, made every stolen touch, every whispered confession, more intoxicating. One evening, after a particularly grueling training session, Ryan suggested we take a break outside. The air was cool, tinged with the scent of rain-soaked asphalt. We walked in silence, side by side, the tension between us palpable. Finally, he stopped, turning to face me. "I need to ask you something," he said, voice low. Do you feel the same way I do?" I swallowed hard, heart pounding. "Yes," I admitted, barely a whisper. "I felt it for weeks, maybe longer." His eyes softened, a rare vulnerability breaking through the usual intensity. He reached for my hand, fingers entwining with mine. "Then we'll figure it out," he said simply, as if that alone could make everything right. From then on, our moments became bolder. The gym sessions were filled with subtle touches, playful challenges, and whispered promises. The evenings were ours, entirely long conversations, shared meals, and lingering kisses that left me breathless. It wasn't just about desire. It was intimacy, trust, understanding. Ryan was no longer just my coach. He was my confidant, my partner, the person who saw me fully and accepted it. Yet, the world outside our private moments remained complicated. We had to navigate prying eyes, rumors, and the constant reminder that what we shared was unconventional, risky. But each challenge only strengthened our bond, forcing us to communicate, trust, and lean on one another in ways I had never experienced. One night, after a particularly intense session, Ryan pulled me into the gym office, shutting the door behind us. The rain pattered against the windows, a gentle rhythm to the storm inside. "Stay with me," he whispered, his forehead resting against mine. "Not just tonight. Stay, in everything." I nodded, unable to speak. My hands found his waist, his arms wrapped around me, and for a long moment, we simply held each other, letting the world fade away. In that embrace, I realized something important. Love wasn't about rules, roles, or expectations. It was about connection, trust, and the courage to feel, to risk, to give yourself fully to someone who truly saw you. And for the first time in my life, I felt safe, completely, with someone who had once been my coach but had become so much more. The weeks that followed felt like walking a tightrope. Every day we maintained the facade of coach and trainee, the professional distance expected of us, while the nights revealed a completely different reality, one that was intimate, tender, and intoxicating. I learned to read the small cues, a lingering look across the gym, the barely noticeable brush of his hand on my shoulder, the way his voice softened whenever he called my name. Ryan had a way of grounding me, of making the chaos in my head fade. He would challenge me relentlessly during training, pushing me past limits I thought I couldn't surpass. And yet, those same hands that corrected my posture, adjusted my stance, and guided my movements, could also cup my face with gentleness, trace idle patterns on my back, or pull me close for a quiet, lingering kiss. One night, the gym was particularly empty, the air heavy with the scent of sweat and rain from outside. Ryan had me on the mats, demonstrating a stretching technique I could barely follow. I felt his hands on my shoulders, firm but careful, and my mind drifted dangerously close to thoughts I wasn't supposed to have. "Breathe," he said, his voice low and calm. "Let it out." I did, trying to focus on the rhythm of the exercise. But it was impossible to ignore the heat radiating from his body so close to mine. My chest tightened as he guided me, and I realized just how much I had come to crave these private sessions. "You've improved so much," he murmured, his breath brushing against my ear. "I'm proud of you." It was just a compliment, just a simple phrase, but it sent a shiver down my spine. Pride wasn't something I associated with myself. Yet, coming from him, it meant everything. I glanced at him, and our eyes met. There was no pretense, no professional barrier in his gaze, just the raw honesty of someone who cared more than they should. "Ryan," I began, my voice barely audible. I don't want this to end." He smiled, a small, private smile that felt like a secret shared between just the two of us. "It doesn't have to," he said simply. "Not unless you want it to." That night, we lingered longer than usual, hands intertwined, bodies close, exploring a tenderness that had been building for weeks. Each kiss, each touch, was a silent confession, a promise that the world outside didn't need to understand. It was ours alone, and that made it sacred. The dynamic between us shifted slowly. Publicly, I was still the trainee, still the one he pushed relentlessly. Privately, however, our connection deepened. We shared meals, laughed over shared jokes, and spoke openly about dreams, fears, and regrets. I discovered a side of Ryan that no one else ever saw: a vulnerability, a quiet sensitivity that made him human, approachable, and achingly beautiful. One evening, after a particularly exhausting session, Ryan suggested we grab dinner at a small diner nearby. The rain had let up, leaving the streets slick and shimmering under the city lights. We walked in silence, our hands brushing occasionally, each touch sending a ripple of heat through me. At the diner, we chose a corner booth, secluded from other patrons. The world felt distant, as if time had slowed just for us. Ryan reached across the table, his fingers brushing mine in a gesture that was equal parts bold and tender. "You've changed me," he said quietly, eyes locked on mine. "More than you realize. I've been trying to be careful, trying to stay professional, but you've made that impossible." I felt my throat tighten. "You've changed me too," I admitted. I never thought I could feel this way about someone, let alone my coach." He smiled, that private smile that always left me weak in the knees. "Then maybe we don't need to think about rules tonight," he said, leaning closer. Dinner became a blur. Conversation flowed effortlessly, punctuated by shared laughter and lingering touches. When we finally stepped back out into the cool night, the city lights reflected in the puddles, creating a shimmering path that seemed to guide us forward. The real turning point came one evening when a storm trapped us in the gym. Rain hammered the windows, wind rattled the doors, and the power flickered, leaving us in a dimly lit room with only the emergency lights casting long shadows. We were working on a new routine, my body tense from exertion, and his hands guided me through each movement. The storm outside made the air between us electric, charged with the kind of tension that makes it impossible to stay professional. "I don't want to wait anymore," He admitted suddenly, voice low, breath ragged. I can't pretend I'm just your coach tonight. Before I could respond, he pulled me into a fierce, desperate kiss. It was raw, urgent, filled with the weight of weeks of longing and suppressed desire. I responded instinctively, hands on his chest, pulling him closer, feeling the strength beneath his touch and the tenderness he had shown in quieter moments. We broke apart briefly, breathing heavily, foreheads touching. Are you sure? I whispered, heart pounding. He nodded, eyes dark with emotion. More than I've ever been sure of anything. From that night, we no longer hid what we felt, even if the world outside still didn't know. The balance between public and private life remained delicate. But the secrecy no longer felt like a burden, it felt like a sanctuary. Every stolen moment, every quiet touch, every whispered confession reinforced the bond we shared. We learned each other's rhythms, desires, and fears. Nights were for closeness and intimacy, days for discipline and training. And in that space between, we found a connection that was deeper than physical attraction and emotional intimacy that made us both feel alive, seen, and unconditionally accepted. The storm that had once felt like a barrier became a metaphor for our relationship. Intense, sometimes frightening, but ultimately cleansing and illuminating. Every challenge, every stolen moment, every brush of hands or lingering gaze strengthened our bond and made the risk worthwhile. One evening, after a particularly emotional session, Ryan pulled me into the quiet corner of the gym. The rain had stopped, leaving the night calm and fragrant with wet earth. He cupped my face in his hands, I searching mine. I don't want to hide anymore, he said simply. Not from you, not from myself. I want the susto be real, to be honest, to be everything it can be. I nodded, tears welling in my eyes, and leaned into him. I want that too, I whispered, more than anything. And in that moment, all the fear, tension, and secrecy melted away. We kissed, slowly, tenderly, allowing ourselves to savor the depth of our feelings. The world outside ceased to exist. There was only him, only me, only the connection we had fought so hard to preserve. For the first time, I felt truly safe, truly cherished. Ryan had become more than a coach. More than a mentor, he had become the person I trusted with my heart, my fears, my dreams. And as we held each other, the quiet hum of the gym surrounding us, I knew that whatever challenges lay ahead, we would face them together. The weeks turned into months, and the rhythm of our secret life became both comforting and exhilarating. Every session in the gym carried its usual intensity, but beneath it, a pulse of intimacy and shared understanding thrummed between us. Each time his hand brushed mine, each time our eyes met over a set of weights, it felt like a reminder that we had claimed a private corner of the world for ourselves. Ryan and I had developed a language of gestures, a lingering touch, a fleeting smile, a subtle brush of fingersit, all carried meaning. It wasn't just passion. It was trust, affection, and the quiet assurance that someone was there, truly present, even in silence. One rainy afternoon, after a long series of drills, Ryan suggested we take a short break. We sat on the edge of the mats, the gym empty, only the soft patter of rain against the windows filling the space. He leaned back, stretching, and looked at me with that familiar intensity. You've grown so much, he said, voice low and warm. Not just in strength or skill, but you're different, more confident, more yourself. I felt my chest swell with emotion. I couldn't have done it without you, I admitted. You pushed me, yes, but you also saw me. You made me feel like I mattered. His gaze softened, and he reached out, tucking a stray strand of hair behind my ear. "You matter," he whispered, almost reverently. "To me, more than you know." The way he said it made my heart lurch. There was no pretense, no barrier, just raw honesty. I reached for his hand, our fingers entwining naturally. "And you matter to me," I whispered back, feeling the weight of truth in the simple phrase. From that day on, our moments together grew bolder, more confident. We no longer feared the tiny sparks of connection in public, though we remained cautious. Behind closed doors, we explored the full depth of our affection-long conversations that stretched into the night. Touches that lingered, kisses that spoke volumes without a single word. One evening, after a particularly grueling workout, Ryan pulled me toward the office, insisting we go over a new routine. The office was quiet, dimly lit by the desk lamp, the shadows dancing across the walls. He closed the door gently behind us, and for a moment, the professional world melted away. "Stay with me," he said softly, pressing his forehead against mine. "Not just tonight. Stay. In everything." I nodded, feeling a surge of warmth and certainty. "I will," I murmured, hands resting on his shoulders. "I've never wanted anything more." The weeks that followed were filled with small but profound moments of intimacy. Morning stretches became excuses for hand-holding. Cool-downs ended in lingering hugs. Conversations about technique often veered into confessions about fears, dreams, and the quiet longing we both felt. Despite the intensity of our connection, life continued around us. Friends, family, and colleagues remained unaware of the depth of our relationship, and perhaps that secrecy made it even more precious. Each stolen moment, each hidden touch, reinforced the bond we shared. It was ours alone, untainted by judgment, full of trust and mutual respect. One night, the city was quiet, streets shimmering under the glow of streetlights after a light drizzle. We decided to take a walk, just the two of us, hands brushing occasionally, hearts in sync. Ryan stopped in the middle of the street, turning to face me. His eyes, dark and intense, held a vulnerability I had rarely seen. "I've been thinking," he said quietly, "about us, about the future. I don't want to hide anymore. I want more." My heart thudded in my chest. "More?" I asked, breathless. "Yes," he said, stepping closer. "I want us to be seen, to be real. I don't want just these stolen moments. I want everything: laughter, arguments, love, support, the whole messy, beautiful life together." Tears pricked my eyes as I reached for him, pulling him into a hug that was both relief and promise. "I want that too," I whispered, voice trembling. "More than anything." From that moment, we began to navigate the world together openly, cautiously, but with courage. It wasn't easy. There were questions, raised eyebrows, and moments of uncertainty, but each challenge only strengthened our bond. We learned to communicate, to trust, and to stand by each other in every situation. One quiet evening, after a long session, Ryan suggested we go somewhere special. He drove us to a small, secluded park near the river, the city lights twinkling in the distance. The air was crisp, scented with the faint aroma of autumn leaves. We walked in silence, hand in hand, feeling the warmth of connection that had grown between us. Finally, we reached a bench overlooking the water. Ryan sat, pulling me close until my head rested against his shoulder. "This is perfect," he murmured. "Just you and me." I nodded, feeling a sense of peace I hadn't known before. "It is," I said softly, fingers tracing patterns on his arm. "I never want this to end." He smiled, brushing a gentle kiss across my temple. "It won't," he promised. "As long as we're together, nothing else matters." The night grew colder, but wrapped in each other's arms. We felt warmth and security. It was in that moment, with the quiet river before us and the city behind, that I realized how far we had come from tentative touches in an empty gym to a love that was steadfast, tender, and undeniable. Ryan and I had created something extraordinary, a connection built on trust, honesty, and the courage to feel deeply. We learned to navigate the complexities of life together, to celebrate small victories, and to support each other through challenges. Our relationship wasn't defined by roles or titles. It was defined by the depth of our care for one another. And as we sat there, watching the reflections of the city lights dance on the water, I knew with absolute certainty that I had found my place, my home, in him. Over time, the fear and uncertainty faded. We continued to train, to challenge each other, to grow together. But we also continued to love, laugh, and dream, sometimes loudly, sometimes quietly, always together. The gym remained our sanctuary, but our hearts had found a much larger space to inhabit, one filled with acceptance, passion, and joy. And as the seasons changed, as days turned into months and months into years, our bond only strengthened. Ryan was no longer just my coach. He was my partner, my confidant, my anchor in a world that could be chaotic and unforgiving. Together, we had discovered that love, real, honest, unguarded love, was worth every risk, every stolen moment, every heartbeat shared in silence. Sitting there on that bench, the night calm and endless, I realized something profound. Happiness isn't about grand gestures or perfect circumstances. It's about being seen, being cherished, and being able to be fully yourself with someone who loves you as you are. And with Ryan by my side, I had found exactly that. As we leaned into each other, the city lights reflecting in our eyes, I knew our story was just beginning. A story not defined by rules, expectations, or fear, but by the courage to love, to feel, and to embrace the extraordinary connection we had discovered. And in that quiet, perfect moment, with the soft hum of the city and the gentle rhythm of our hearts, I felt an overwhelming sense of peace, of joy, of home, because he was no longer just my coach. He was mine, and I was his. The days that followed were a delicate blend of ordinary life and extraordinary intimacy. Publicly, Ryan remained the coach, the professional mentor who pushed me to excel and measured every movement with unwavering precision. Privately, he was the man I had come to love, the one who understood the fragile, unspoken pieces of me that no one else could see. Our evenings became sacred rituals. Sometimes it was just sitting together in the quiet of the gym, the fluorescent lights dimmed, hands entwined as we shared our thoughts and fears. Other times, it was long walks beneath the city lights, talking about everything and nothing, feeling the warmth of his presence like a shield against the world outside. One night, after an intense training session, Ryan suggested we stay late to go over some techniques. The gym was silent, bathed in the dim glow of the remaining lights, the equipment casting long shadows across the room. I was exhausted, muscles trembling, yet the thought of being close to him filled me with an energy I hadn't felt in weeks. He guided me through stretches, hands firm yet gentle on my back, and I felt a familiar shiver run through me. "Relax," he murmured, voice low and intimate, brushing a stray lock of hair from my forehead. "You're doing so well. I'm proud of you." I caught his gaze, and the usual professional distance had completely disappeared. I'm proud of us," I whispered, heart pounding. Ryan's lips curved into a smile, the kind that was soft and private, reserved only for me. "Us," he echoed, and there was a warmth in his voice that made me weak. He stepped closer, our bodies almost touching. Yes, this, everything between us. Before I could respond, he leaned in, pressing a gentle kiss to my lips. It was soft at first, tender and exploratory, then deepened with a certainty that mirrored the emotions we had been harboring for months. My hands found his shoulders, pulling him closer, feeling the steady strength of him as if it could anchor all my doubts and fears. That night marked a turning point. We stopped pretending, stopped hiding behind titles and roles. Our relationship became open between us, a bond strengthened by trust, honesty, and a willingness to embrace what we felt without fear. In the following days, we reveled in simple pleasures, breakfasts at small diners, where laughter came easily, quiet evenings watching movies in his apartment, feet tangled together on the couch, and late-night walks in the park, talking until the city lights faded into dawn. Every moment was a confirmation of something deeper, something worth fighting for. Ryan taught me more than physical strength taught me vulnerability, patience, and the courage to love without reservation. And in return, I showed him the softness he had been craving, the freedom to lower his walls without judgment. Our intimacy went beyond the physical. It was emotional, mental, and spiritual. We learned to anticipate each other's thoughts, to soothe each other's insecurities, and to celebrate each other's victories, no matter how small. One evening, as autumn painted the city in warm hues, Ryan suggested a quiet getaway. We drove to a small lakeside cabin, far from the prying eyes and relentless pace of the city. The air was crisp, fragrant with fallen leaves, and the lake mirrored the sky in perfect stillness. Inside the cabin, the space was cozy, filled with the warmth of a fireplace and the soft glow of lamplight. Ryan took my hand, leading me to the window that overlooked the water. "I wanted us to have this," he said, voice tender. "A place where we can just be us." I leaned against him, heart full, feeling the rhythm of his heartbeat against mine. "It's perfect," I whispered, fingers tracing idle patterns on his arm. He turned to face me, cupping my face in his hands. "I've loved you from the moment I realized I couldn't stop thinking about you," he confessed, eyes searching mine for any hint of doubt. "And I want to keep loving you every day, every moment." Tears welled in my eyes, emotions spilling over in a way I hadn't expected. "I love you too," I said, voice trembling, "more than I ever thought I could love anyone." The night unfolded gently, intimately. We shared quiet kisses by the fire, whispered promises, and the kind of closeness that left no room for fear. Every touch, every gaze, every word was a reaffirmation of the bond we had nurtured in secrecy and now celebrated openly. The days at the cabin were filled with laughter, playful teasing, and quiet conversations that lasted until dawn. Ryan revealed his vulnerabilities, fears, and dreams, and I shared mine in turn. We discovered the depth of understanding that comes from truly seeing someone, accepting them, and choosing to stay. One evening, as we sat by the lake watching the sun set, Ryan took my hand. "I want to make this official," he said softly, voice steady but eyes shimmering with emotion. "Not because we need permission, but because I want the world to know. I want everyone to see how much you mean to me." I felt my heart swell. "Yes," I said without hesitation. "I want that too. I want all of it with you." From that moment, our relationship became a testament to love's endurance. We navigated the challenges of public perception, the whispers of colleagues, and the lingering tension of our initial secrecy with grace and unwavering commitment. Every obstacle was an opportunity to reaffirm our devotion, to prove that our connection was stronger than fear, stronger than convention. We celebrated anniversaries, milestones, and the small victories of everyday life. Each shared morning coffee, each laugh at an inside joke, each gentle touch in the quiet of a room became a symbol of our journey from tentative beginnings in an empty gym to a love that was resilient, passionate, and fully realized. Evenings became moments of reflection, of gratitude, and of hope. We would sit together, hands intertwined, hearts aligned, and speak of dreams for the future, dreams that no longer felt distant or impossible. We spoke of traveling, of building a home filled with love and warmth, of supporting each other in ways that extended far beyond the gym or the city we had known. Ryan and I had discovered a love that was rare and profound. It was a love that thrived on trust, honesty, and the courage to embrace vulnerability. It was a love that celebrated the mundane as much as the extraordinary, the quiet moments as much as the passionate ones. And it was a love that promised, above all, to endure. As the seasons turned, the world outside changed, but our bond remained constant. We grew together, learned together, and celebrated the beauty of a connection that was wholly ours. The gym remained a backdrop to our story, but our hearts had found a much larger space, a space defined by love, trust, and unwavering commitment. And in the quiet of one final evening, as we sat wrapped in each other's arms, watching the sunset over the lake, I realized something profound. Happiness isn't found in perfection, nor in grand gestures or accolades. Happiness is found in being seen, truly and completely, by someone who loves you without condition. Ryan was no longer just my coach. He was my partner, my confidant, my home. And in him, I had discovered a love that was tender, fierce, and enduring, a love that made the world feel brighter, safer, and infinitely more beautiful. I leaned into him, breathing in the scent of his hair, feeling the warmth of his body, and knew with absolute certainty that this was where I belonged. Not in a gym, not in the expectations of others, not in fleeting moments of desire, but here, with him, in a love that had grown through patience, courage, and unwavering devotion. The city beyond the lake, the world beyond the cabin, didn't matter. What mattered was Thesis, the way our hands fit together, the way our hearts beat in sync, the way our souls had found one another in a world that often seemed unkind. And as the sun dipped below the horizon, casting the sky in shades of gold and rose, I smiled, because finally, after all the fear, all the secrecy, all the longing, I understood something simple yet profound: love. The kind that changes you, the kind that anchors you, the kind that lasts. It was ours. And it always would be, wrapped in Ryan's arms, the warmth of our love enveloping me. I whispered softly, "I'm home." He smiled, pressing a gentle kiss to my forehead. "So am I," he replied. And in that perfect, endless moment, I knew it was true. No matter what the world demanded, no matter the obstacles we might face, we had each other, and that was enough. More than enough. Thank you for listening. If you find it interesting, please like and subscribe to follow the next stories.